In this episode, Leanna and Cathal are going to get a feel for a new house and the community around it. Later on, they're going to get a visit from Ronan Lyon's Economist, who's going to chat through all of the grants and help that is available to them.
Thanks for coming out to meet us. So Dermot told us plenty about you, and he told us to really grill you on anything we needed to know. So thanks for coming out.
Not at all. It's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm trying to learn more about you guys and what your journey is from log cabin to hopefully a new home for you guys. Housing has changed so much. Even in 15 years, you look at the quality of what's being built now compared to 15 years ago. 2005, 6, 7, the typical property was probably C1 or C2 rated on the BER scale. Now you're talking about A1 rated, which really basically consume very little energy at all. And that's a triple win because on the one hand, properties that are more energy efficient keep their value better. They have a premium compared to less energy efficient homes. So if you're investing now, it's something that you'll see. The second thing is it's a win from an energy bills point of view. You're spending less month to month. And then the third one, which is important as well, it's good for the climate if you're consuming less energy on an ongoing basis.
I think Cathal here is still a bit on the fence between Doer-Upper and a new build. He's not quite convinced. So if you could share your thoughts with us.
There's an upfront cost in both. But then with the Doer-Upper, you've got a lot of extra costs that'll come down the line. We bought a second-hand home ourselves. We're 6 or 7 years in and we're still fixing things.
Ron, do you think now is actually a good time to buy?
It's the $1 million question, isn't it? If this is a home that can suit you and your needs and your family's needs for 10 years or more, then you're taking a lot of the risk out. Because in addition to your deposit, you've also got the equity you've built up by paying off your mortgage over that period of time. It takes a lot of the risk out.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the first home scheme?
Yeah, so there's two schemes actually that are really important for first-time buyers to be aware of, especially first-time buyers who are interested in a new build. One is the Help to Buy scheme, and one is the First Home scheme. And the Help to Buy is the older one of the two. It's been around for nearly 10 years now. And the idea behind it is that you can get some of the income tax you paid in the last few years back as part of your deposit. The First Home scheme is newer. It's only been in place for a couple of years. So it's an equity stake that the government has in your home, and you can buy them out. There's terms and conditions, there's income limits and so on. You can go on a citizensinformation.ie and get the different limits which vary around the country. You can get both in certain instances. So they're both worth looking into.
You know, the bank is so stringent in how much money they'll lend you, and they'll be really, really strict on the amount they'll give. But then the government are giving you another potentially 150,000 euro. And it just, for me, it seems a little bit too good to be true.
The government wants to encourage people to be able to buy their own home. And that's where the schemes come in that they're trying to bridge that gap between not taking on too much debt and still being able to afford a home.
You know, we have to put a 10% deposit down. Would that be a 10% of the value of the house that we would have to give? Or is the 10% of our mortgage that we're getting?
If you're up to 90% loan to value, that's the phrase they use, the other 10% can come from any combination of first homes, Help to Buy, savings, a gift. Now, the bigger a deposit you have, sometimes the lower the interest rate you can get.
Ronan, you talked about the schemes, the Help to Buy and the First Home scheme. Just wondering, you know, how much could you potentially avail of with those schemes?
So let's take a couple, and they've 75,000 a year in income, and they're looking at a property that's worth 425,000 euro. Under the mortgage rules, they can borrow 4 times their salary. So that's 300,000 euro. There's still a gap though, 300 to 425. 30,000 of that could come from Help to Buy, or they may have their deposit, but whichever way, that gets them to 330,000. And then the balance, probably about 25% or so, could be, if it's eligible, from the First Home scheme. And that's how you make the numbers work in that case.
When we were applying for our mortgage now, we were told there's something called green mortgage. Can you tell us more about that?
The idea behind a green mortgage is to encourage people to buy more energy efficient properties. And ultimately what it means is the interest rate you pay on the mortgage, and therefore the amount you pay back every month, is lower.
Could you give us kind of your checklist, your top tips for first-time buyers? What do we need to do?
The first would be to get those accounts granny proof, to get them clean, clear, so that somebody can see what's going on. The second would be to get yourself familiar with the different schemes there are, like First Homes and the mortgage rules. And the third would be to go and talk to mortgage providers or a mortgage broker early on.
What do you think? Where's the best to buy?
We've been looking at this, myself and a couple of the researchers I work with, on what do people really value in a location. Time and again, what comes out top is sense of community. And what's nice about an area with new builds is that you tend to get people at the same stage in life. Not that you can't have that elsewhere, but it's just going to grow more organically if everyone's coming in around the same time at the same stage in life. In terms of amenity value, are things nature, the ability to go for a walk, parklands, green space, that kind of thing, and then access to transport facilities. That's the other thing that people really value.
If we are buying a Doer-Upper, could we actually put down an offer without being mortgage approved?
Typically, an estate agent won't consider an offer until you've been approved. They like to see approval in principle. You don't tell them how much you're approved for, because that kind of tells us the max budget, but they would want to know if you're approved in principle. So only make bids once you're approved, once you know your budget.
Okay, so is that the same thing then for a new build?
With new build, it's slightly different because you're not in a bidding process. You're not bidding against someone, but it's still well worth having everything ready to go.
I'd have a lot of friends out in West Dublin who are paying significant portions of the salary in rent every month. So how would that compare to, say, them getting a mortgage instead? If you were to rent a 3-bed house in West Dublin, you'd be paying about $2,100 a month at the moment. If you were to buy that property, 30-year mortgage, 15% deposit, sort of standard enough interest rates and terms and conditions, the mortgage would be about $1,400 or $1,500 a month. And even if the interest rates were to go up, to rise by 2 percentage points, which would be a big increase, the repayment would be about $1,800 a month. So the range for mortgage repayments is significantly below what people are paying in rents at the moment. And that's part of the snag, but it's also the reason why we have schemes like the First Home Scheme and Help to Buy.
We leave Leanna, Cathal and baby Roisin. They have tons to think about. Tomorrow we're going to catch up with them and ask the big question, is it a new build or a Doer-Upper?
Tomorrow, I think we're going to get out into the town and go have a coffee and check out one of the parks and have a feel for the kind of community that's here. We can't get over how quiet it is because we live right next to the N4, so we get lots of traffic noise, lots of sirens. And just, I don't think I've heard a car passes by in the last 30 minutes or so.
What I love the most about a house is all the space, obviously, because that's something we're really lacking right now. Yeah. So I love the space. I love how warm it is.
Big, spacious kitchen, dining room. Just, it seems great for hosting people for dinner. Just looks absolutely so inviting, you know.
I love this house.